Are you having a hard time with your social media for your business? Are you struggling to keep up with all the changes that are going on with the new platforms? Well, you're listening to the right podcast. Welcome to the Coffee Chat Podcast. My name is Aaron. I will be your host today. I'm doing something different today. I'm doing it by myself. I want to share a little bit about something that I do here at Colados. I do all the social media here. My official name is the marketing manager, and I do all the marketing, all the pictures that you see around here, the menus, the graphics, and I really want to share what has helped Colados in the past 6 years, and hopefully you can benefit a little bit by this. But I want to define quickly what marketing is. Marketing, I found this great definition for marketing. It says the process of creating value for customers by building strong relationships to create an audience. Notice how I didn't even mention nothing about selling. And I think marketing has changed a lot nowadays where people are tired to just get bombarded by all these ads and always, trying to sell them on something. People can sense when you're trying to sell to them. So marketing has really changed, and I love this definition that I found, this more modern definition. And instead of selling, it's about telling something. When you see it in that perspective, you create a different idea. You have a different concept of how you promote your business rather than just like, hey, here's some new product that I have. Hey, come buy this. And you change that into, hey, here's a story about how I did this. And, a great book that comes to mind is Start With Your Why. Start With Why by Simon Sinek. Super recommended for those. I might even do like the best books to read, my favorite books that I've read in the past, those are one of them in a later podcast. Let me know if you're interested. But I want to talk a little bit about how that has helped us. And you might hear a name that comes up a lot, and that's going to be Gary Vaynerchuk. If you haven't heard of him, go follow him. Go find his Instagram or Facebook. He's on everything. But I've really found a lot of information from him on marketing. And these are the main three takeaways that I've found from it. I've been following him for a couple of years, but these are the things that he just keeps repeating. In my point of view, that there's a lot of them talk about patience and all these things, but something that I implement a lot is that we have to document versus create. When we see it as documenting something we do rather than always creating, it takes weight off your shoulders rather than always trying to perfect, starting, when I started doing all the pictures for the shop, I had this fancy camera, taking all this lighting, which is, it's important when you have, all these tools. But I find out that the greatest pictures that I get the most like and the most reach were the ones that I took from my phone. And, because people can sense when you're trying super hard to get all these angles, but you find out when you're documenting, people are connected and they're seeing what you're doing, so it creates a different experience. And number two, something that I found is that we have to treat your business as a media company first, and then as the product or service that you do. Here's an example. Colados as a media company is that everything we do, we have to share it and post it. That way people stay up to date. And then, we focus on the crepes and the coffee, which, of course it's important, but as a marketing, that's how we see it. We have to share it. And I'm not saying that it's not important, but it's how we see it from a marketing perspective. And lastly, number three, another takeaway from Gary Vaynerchuk is that you just have to post it. This has helped me a lot because I'm a perfectionist, but this has really set me free to just post it, to not overthink about it, not trying to fix all the perfections and Photoshop everything. No, just post it. And the more raw, the more real, and people connect to that. So go ahead and check out Gary Vee, and you're going to find a lot of good things that can benefit you in social media. So a little bit about our social media at Colados. Been open for 6 years, and this is mid-2020. We have 13,000 followers on Instagram, not too shabby. On Facebook, we have 20,000, about to hit 20,000 followers on Facebook. So if you're not following us, hit us up on Facebook so we can hit those 20 soon. But I see it more not just as followers, but as influence. The greater the influence you have, the more response you're going to have from your audience. So if you only have 5 people, But man, those people are really connected to you. Hey, hang on to those followers. Don't see them as, I just have 5 followers. You keep on treating them like you have 5,000 and you're going to get there. I believe in you. Um, but I'm going to focus today more on just the marketing through social media because that's my greatest focus. And I want to talk about social media because thank God for social media. It is a gift. It's a great way to communicate because back in the day, talk about like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we didn't even have Facebook, right? Instagram was created in 2010, 10 years ago. So a lot has changed and a lot of updates have happened. But 20 years ago, in order to share about your business, you had to put it on a newspaper. You had to buy a commercial. You had to buy, radio time. So thankfully now marketing has moved into your pocket and now you have it on your phone. So it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I think that's a term. So as a business, how do you keep up with all these changes? Maybe you're like, I'm still on Facebook, like I'm still on MySpace. Like how do I keep up with TikTok? Should I be on TikTok? So I want to give you guys a guide that has helped me keep up with all these platforms and still keep the same message of who we are. So I'm gonna give you 3 things that have helped me keep up with all these social media trends and whatever is going on, challenges that are happening. So number 1, something that can help you is that you have to build your personality. You're like, we're talking about social media. Social media, it's not a person. But maybe we have to start treating social media as a person. Treat your page as if, your Instagram is actually a real person. How would he respond? How would he, respond to criticism or complaint? So you got to start building a character. So let's try something out. Right there where you're at, think about it. If you have a social media for your business, what personality or character would you compare it to in the famous movie or television show? Something that comes up to mind, which is a good one, is Jim from The Office. He's funny, he's joking, he's caring. Now put that into your social media. How would he respond? How would he post something, being funny, using a song as a caption? Once you start thinking like that, people start catching on to this lingo, to this concept that you have. And then you become more familiar and people can relate to that. So that's one way to see it. Another good example is how Wendy's, if you follow Wendy's on Twitter, I'm not a bit on Twitter a lot. I need to get on it more. But I've seen these like very viral posts where Wendy's responds to other like Burger King with something funny and throwing shade. So once you start building your personality, people start to follow and they connect and it becomes more familiar to people. Now, any new platform that comes, whether it's TikTok or Snapchat or whatever the next thing is going to happen, you don't really have to change. Once you have that personality, you jump on with the same message and you keep on going with it. You keep on being funny if that's your thing, or being serious if that's really who you are. But just keep on being who you are and have that personality on every platform. And once you have that set, you start creating a brand through social media. You create a style, and then you start creating like this language. It's kind of like culture when you're growing up and you hear your parents say this. A lot of all these sayings that they have, and I don't know where it starts becoming normal. It's the same way with social media. Use it as a platform where you create a language and people follow. A good example is this place in California called The Loop Churros. They have, they're saying, stay in the loop. They're using that same language and creating this lingo that they go with everything that they say. So once you start creating that personality, you create a culture where even your employees and the people around you, continue to follow, and it's consistent across every platform. So it keeps on spreading. So once you build your personality, once you know who you are, you know who you're not. So you know what not to post, you know what not to do, what maybe social media platform not to go because it doesn't fit you. So that's the first thing we got to recognize and know is you have to build your personality. Number 2, we have to stay consistent. Even though it may take a while to find yourself, because as a coffee shop, my mom was the one who started doing all the social media. and she followed like 6,000 people, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like we're following a lot of people, but with those people, we had a lot of followers follow us back, and she would just post out of nowhere, and she would get a lot of likes and response. So once I started picking up our social media, I started to build this style to find what works for me. And the best way is to look at other coffee shops, to look other businesses that are like you that you look up to, and not copy them. But as this book that I read is called the Creative Habit. You start scratching. That's a term that they use. Using something from another platform and making it yours, fitting it to your personality, fitting it to who you are, and making it your own. That's the best way that you don't plagiarize, but you scratch the idea and make it yours. So as business owners, what help us stay consistent is, like I said in the beginning, document, don't create. What can you share? What story? What can you share about what you're doing right now that other people can gain value and stay up to date with what you're doing? So that really helps us out. And here at Colados, we try to post. I try to post at least once a day. That's Sometimes that's hard, and I'm the marketing manager. I can't imagine for people who own the business and are doing everything how hard that can be. But I challenge you to at least do 2 to 3 every week for a month. I tried doing every day for a month. Man, it was a challenge, but that forced me to be creative. That pushed me to say, I have to post today. What can I do? What can I find? Maybe a new angle. Maybe if I shoot it like this from far away. Maybe if I have somebody hold it now. Try to find something different, but shooting the same thing. And now, the algorithm with all the social media, before it was whatever you posted first, that's the first thing that came out. But now it's like the people that post the most, they're appearing more on other people's social media. So that's why it's so important to be consistent and keep on posting. And and by continuing to post, you stay alive. People who follow you are seeing that something's going on, that things are changing, that there's something new. So that's why it's important to stay consistent and to remind people that you're there through this whole pandemic. Somebody that did a good job with this was barbecues. I don't know how they did it, but they got my number and they would send these messages and say, "Hey, bring your family for this deal that we have, this family deal." And I was like, "Barbecues! I forgot about barbecues, man." So they would send it every now and then, but it was a great way to remind people what's going on. Some people, it's good to remind them because we forget. So let's stay consistent. And lastly, number 3, something that can help you is to share a story. Share a story. Like we said before, the goal of social media is not to sell, but to tell. And many people make the mistake of just selling, just posting. Hey, buy this, buy my new product. Here, get this. But like I said, Gary Vee, thank you, Gary Vee, for helping us out. He has a great book. It's called Jab, 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 Right Hook. Now, we're not talking about boxing here. We're talking about social media. So how can we apply this to social media? What does it mean by jab, jab, jab? He's talking about give, 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 and then ask. When you give value, and then you ask, people have no choice but to give back. They're like, this guy just poured out all this information. He poured out all this value to us. What can we do? Like you feel guilty, just like you have to give back. And that's when you're right hook and you get people to buy what you have, your product. And another ratio that can also help you is this 1-to-5 ratio. So you give 5 posts, you post about something creative, share value, a story, and then only 1 post out of those 5, let it be something that you sell. And why stories? Because we all love to hear stories. Who doesn't like to watch a good movie or a novela or whatever it is, right? We love to listen to drama or whatever it is to catch our attention. And that's why we love to keeping up with the Kardashians, right? It's a reality show. We're following them around. We're seeing what's going on, what's new, how do they respond to this. In the same way, we have to keep that same concept in our business and share stories that are going on. And there's so many stories that we haven't shared as a Colados, family that have happened that, we're ready to share, but we're slowly sending bits and pieces of, like Maybe one story you didn't know was that our parents had to pawn their rings to get enough money to start this location. Maybe you didn't know that we used to sleep under our meeting room before, nobody used to come in. So we'd take a nap at 5 in the morning. I don't know why we're open so early, and people would not show up till 6. So we heard this ding, the doors open, we would run out. People love to hear these stories because by telling people stories, you make them a part of your life. You make them a part of what you do. Another good one is we recently got a van. So we shared the whole process of how we got it. We bought the van, we designed it, we got a photographer, we had the people put on the design on there. So when we bring people on board to what you do, instead of creating customers, you create an audience. When you have an audience, you create fans that whatever you do, whatever you post, whatever you sell, they're going to want to follow because you got their back, you got their support. So it's all about just sitting in the behind the scenes. So what's going on? Hey guys, let me show you what happens behind the bar. Or if you have a service that you do, hey, let me show you what we do every day. Record a day in the life of an employee. People are going to value that. They're going to treat you a lot better when they see all the work that you have to do. So when you see it as sharing a story, it's so much easier to post more often because there's a lot of stories that we go as business, there's a lot of things that go on. So the key is you have to inform and entertain. If you can do those two things, you got people's attention. And we all know attention is so valuable on social media because we have to stop the scroll. We have to stop people from scrolling. Okay, this popped out. What is this? So there's a lot of things that you can share from a business perspective. You just got to keep on sharing those stories because we all love stories. So lastly, don't overthink it. Just post it. Just show people what you're doing as a business. You're going to see people are going to keep on following you and keep on wanting to buy what you have. But you have to give. And there's a lot of great platforms that are doing a good job. I'll name a couple that I follow, coffee shops or other places that are just doing a good job at this. Alfred Coffee in LA. They're always doing a great job with what they're posting, staying relevant. Sweet Greens is a salad place. Always doing, they just have a great concept, doing everything natural. And I like to follow a lot of churches as well. They have a lot of great ways to share stories. So, try to look for other places that are doing a good job and try to mimic what they're doing and make it your own. How can I apply this to my business? How can I share my story in a different way, in a modern way that relates and connects to people? And the most authentic that you can get, the better. Because people need that weirdness from you. People need that originality. They're tired of the same old thing that they're looking at social media. Why don't you surprise them with something new and something special that defines you? So find new ways to be creative, and you're going to see people follow you more. I really hope that you were benefited from this podcast talking about social media 101. And I want to do more like this. Maybe there's going to be a part 2. But there's a lot of resources out there that you can do. Here's a great book that I've been reading called The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. One of the chapters that really stood out to me is that marketing is a perspective. It's how you see things. It's like this idea that you have about Coca-Cola. It's an idea that you have about these big brands because they have shared that with you. So we have to share it. We have to let it out there so people can see what's going on. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for subscribing to this podcast. If you haven't subscribed, why don't you review if you're listening to this through Apple Podcasts and share it to somebody who has a business, somebody who has social media who can benefit from this. Thank you guys for going on this journey with me. I hope to see you on the next podcast. We'll see you soon. Hasta la vista.